Streaming live, this is NewsNation Now.
And a good Wednesday afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us here on NewsNationNow.com and our News Nation Facebook page. Going to talk about an interesting topic, a topic that is very difficult for a lot of us to think about and to hear. It's human trafficking. Coming up tonight at 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock Central on WGN America and News Nation. We've got a special report about just this topic. And to dive a little bit deeper into this, I want to bring in Elizabeth Good. She's the CEO of the Salo Way, which is a national foundation looking to eradicate sexual exploitation and trafficking. Elizabeth, thank you so much for taking the time here on News Nation.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You got it. Elizabeth, first things first, I want you to tell everyone out there a little bit about your story. I was extremely moved listening to some of the videos on your website as to why you wanted to launch this organization. Tell us your story.
Are you speaking in regard to my background?
Yes.
You saw that. Well, you know what? I have a new book out by HarperCollins. It's called Groomed. And it just really, I mean, the book speaks to things that all adults can benefit from and just blind spots and getting over messages that we grew up with. But any child, any of us, I myself, I was sexually abused, I was raped, and it portrayed me instantly. I went from like super overachiever, fantastic student, fantastic everything, to sort of the bad girl. And that label, then you have more and more shame, and you make one decision, the next decision. And over the decade of doing this work, I've worked with thousands and thousands of young ladies that their story always begins. They say statistically, 92% of survivors of sexual trafficking have been sexually abused. 100% of the girls over the last 10 years. They're abused, they have shame, they hide the shame, they step into worse situation after worse situation. Before they know it, they find themselves on the streets, somebody saying, hey, if you just have sex with this guy, I'll take care of us. And then they're in this life and they don't even know how to get out of it. It's not who they are. It's not what they ever thought they'd become. And it just sort of takes us over. And that's why I think it's one of the fastest growing crimes in America, because predators are learning how to capitalize on our little children that are just getting lost. And if the stats are, 1 out of 3 little girls being sexually abused or 1 out of 5 little boys, there is a lot of people to prey on.
Well, it's a scary situation, and I've done some research on your website, and I want you to talk a little bit about prevention, protection, and provision. Prevention is one that you're adamant about in making sure that this very difficult topic that we may all read about, we may all hear about on social media, but that we know enough about it to prevent it.
Right. And you know what? That is why we're there's a lot of organizations are sending staff into schools, and you're getting a little bit here, a little bit there. We have a bill pending in Congress to mandate it nationwide. It's been mandated in certain states to have prevention in the schools, but to have this train the trainer model of the entire school system being trained, because often the only person that might really see the real side of a child might be the security guy, it might be a janitor, it might be the lunchroom lady that will notice the shift. Like, this used to be a really outgoing little girl, and then all of a sudden she comes to school one day and something's different. So it's training the system to have eyes, because with the stats of sexual abuse, people need to be viewing it differently. So we're really excited about getting it in the schools, because every little boy and every little girl, and people are fighting it. They're going, well, why kindergarten? The majority of sexual abuse of the cases that we've worked with starts as young as 3, 4, 5 years old. Often by 10, 14, it's way too late. They've been abused for years and become experts at keeping secrets. So my passion is for sure getting children beyond the point of keeping secrets and fighting that shame that makes them want to hide and then leads to worse situations.
There's obviously a responsibility, Elizabeth, from the parent, and I have 2 small children myself. What is our responsibility as parents in order to walk down that road of prevention, from not letting it happen? I hate to put myself in those situations, but unfortunately, as a parent, my responsibility is to those 2 little kids more than anything else in this world.
Little girls?
Yes.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I think the biggest thing a parent can do is be open and be willing to talk about it and be educated. There is some great information out there. My book, Groomed, actually walks parents through their own blind spots, because you'll realize if you haven't been healed of something, you can't speak to it. So many of our girls will say, my mom knew what my dad was doing to me, and she didn't stop. But generationally, what we know is that those moms were abused themselves and no one intervened for them. So I think the first step is getting past your own blind spots, realizing what you can and cannot talk about yourself, and get past that so you can be an awesome parent that can talk about anything. And there's another website. We started Selah Freedom a decade ago. So SelahFreedom.com. They have free training for parents online every month. And you could just log in, you sign up on a Zoom, and you just listen. And there are so many things, so many tools, so many things we need to look for with social media and just how to keep an eye on our children.
Elizabeth Good joins us right now. She's the CEO of the Selah Way, which is looking to eradicate trafficking here in the United States. And if you have a question on Facebook, you'd like to interact with us, we would love for you to be a part of that. We are talking to Elizabeth as we are preparing tonight at 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock Central on WGN America for News Nation, focusing on this issue. And Elizabeth, you and I kind of talked about this a little bit, and I want to read a little bit from this story. And obviously, when you talk about trafficking, there is a Hollywood aspect here, as Jeffrey Epstein has been charged in some of these cases. But there's also connections to maybe stuff that really doesn't happen. Is there a concern with organizations like yourself that there are too much on social media that kind of gets bogged down as far as the real aspects of trafficking that are happening? Or right now, if you see something, suspect something, even if you see it on social media, maybe you should say something?
Well, I think that it's a fine line and a slippery slope of not reporting. I mean, think about it. We've gotten past, people used to not be able to speak about breast cancer. People would not be able to speak about domestic violence, child abuse. All of these things have made major movement over the last decades. And now we're in this era where people finally are talking about sexual abuse. I mean, would we have seen Bill Cosby coming, right? Never. A lot of these names that have come up that have in fact been convicted are not things we ever would have thought. They were like cherished actors. And so we don't know. I mean, I don't think we ever have the wisdom to just say anybody's above reproach. I think human nature, what I have seen, I have had major donors of high level status and wealth that were in the front of all of our events. And then I see them arrested for trying to buy sex with a 14-year-old boy. I just think that we don't know. And I don't think you ever want to say to yourself, oh, I shouldn't report something, because we've seen too much already. And I have a feeling a lot more is on the horizon because more and more people are learning to speak up. So I think our law enforcement agents, you know, on the Selah Way Foundation, we have a law enforcement training, a national training cadre. All of the professionals, we have healthcare, ER docs people are being trained. So you don't have to worry about over-reporting. I think we still need to worry about under-reporting.
Very good information there from Elizabeth Good. Elizabeth, if there are a few pointers that you would give out to everyone as far as knowing what you see, reporting what you see, what would those pointers be in order to protect those kiddos and to stop what we're seeing of trafficking of human beings?
Well, I think there's almost two different pathways. There's the everyday with our own children. I think people want to not believe it could happen to their own children. And I have to tell you, you know, I'm from the North Shore of Chicago. I'm in Florida most of the time now. I get calls from around the country, you know, different states, from different high-level individuals, donors, friends, and they're sharing and saying, I think maybe my daughter needs some services from Selah. And they're saying they didn't see it coming, but now they know. They were talking to somebody that led them into something. One personal friend literally had, and she raised her daughter just like me, and it was a little more like my daughter, more quiet, not really the out there, the uber popular in that fast crowd, just a really nice girl, a little bit sheltered. And you tell your kids again and again, do not do this online, do not do this. If you need to have more tips, you can sign up for that Selah Freedom resource page to learn and watch. But you tell them all this, and children in their minds think that they are smarter, that they know more, and they will. Inevitably, they say 1 out of 9 of our children now, any zip code in any town USA, 1 out of 9 are approached by a predator in their bedroom on their device. And so I think it's having these conversations and really watching. Like one of the women that had this happen, she said that her daughter was just getting more and more, you know, hiding a little bit more in her room, a little more quiet. And then this girl said that by the time that this man had already had her take off her clothes and take pictures, and she's so beautiful, and she hadn't heard that from a boy before, it was only when he said to her, well, you're going to get your passport and you're going to meet me, did she go, oh my gosh, this is what my parents have been telling me about sex trafficking. I think I'm in trouble. And she told her mom. But by then, a lot of damage had already been done. But many of the children are online thinking that they're talking to a peer. I had a 16-year-old girl, her mother called me just 2 weeks ago and say she met somebody online, and it turns out he's not a kid at all. What do I do? And so I think having the openness to say to our children, I love you. I know you think you know what you're doing, but if you get into something and it feels bad, then you got to do phone checks. I have a lot of adults say, I don't want to invade my children's privacy. Is it worth invading their privacy to do a phone check? Just scroll through it. Who is this person? Do you know them on Snapchat? I mean, these things, these apps disappear. You have interaction and then they're gone. How do you protect your children? You have to be willing to talk about it and in there with them. And they're not going to like it every second of the day, but it's a whole different landscape of when we were growing up, completely different.
Elizabeth, run that stat one more time. Did you say 1 in 9 children will have a predator approach them via their cell phone, texting, social media?
1 out of 9. 1 out of 9 of our children. And you know what? Like they used to say, oh, beware of stranger danger. And now it's, then it evolved into beware of who you kind of know. Now it is the person on social media that is just telling you, you're so pretty. There's so many apps where girls can go and boys can post photos. And if they're hungry for attention, they pose as a kid their own age. They put up whatever profile picture they want. So yes, 1 out of 9 is the statistic today of children being coerced right in the privacy of their own room, right in your own home.
That's staggering to think about, and there is some responsibility, no doubt, on each and every one of us to watch out for this. Is it troubling for you, if we go back to the story that we're going to run tonight, that Hollywood now has become a focal point for some of these stories, whether it is Epstein or even, a debunked story, and I'm about to bring up a name, but this is not true, that Oprah Winfrey was brought into this thought process as well. That story was debunked. But is it worrisome that this has gone from what you talked about, 1 out of 9 being approached from their phone or their cell phone, to now it's Hollywood that everybody sees?
Well, you know what? I think just like any place that there is abuse, whatever relationship is abusive, it is based on power and control. So celebrities, what are they oozing with, right? Power and control. So of course they're going to be a target. And I think, what do they say? It's water off a duck's back. Somebody is going to learn to either be above this if they are not a predator, but we don't know. I mean, there are many, they will say, elected officials, actors, high-level corporate, with Epstein, there's, we have his Giselle, I'm blanking on her name right now, in jail. Is she going to get out? Ghislaine Maxwell, if he brings names forward, elected officials, royalty, we don't know. So you would love to say, oh, this is horrible, everybody's getting a bad rap, and we shouldn't allow any of these names to ever be mentioned. But what if it's the one Bill Cosby, or it's the one, Harvey Weinstein? Look at what happened there. I mean, there's just so many things that we never would have thought previously. How do we know? So am I sitting around all day saying, oh, this is definitely going to happen and this is coming out? No, I'm not saying that. But am I believing that it may not? No. I mean, we really have been amazed and amazed and amazed, right? Over time, over stories over the last 3, 5, 7 years of people that have been exposed. So I think people are going to continue to do because they're getting their own freedom. I think where we have a problem, like you say, does it concern me? What concerns me are people throwing their own misplaced accusation on somebody for something that may have happened to them years ago, and they're blaming somebody maybe in a more current situation for some unaddressed trauma in their way past that they still haven't dealt with. That concerns me more.
All right. Elizabeth, thank you so much. Elizabeth Good, CEO of the Sail Way. We appreciate you taking the time here on NewsNation Now. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Elizabeth, again, thank you so much. Very interesting story coming up tonight. We're going to spend a little bit of time on this, both talking about Hollywood and its effect on human trafficking, how some of these things are false and how they've been reported. Plus, we're going to have a live report from somebody on the inside who has seen some of these happen. All of this coming up tonight on WGN America, 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock Central for News Nation. Join us then. I am Aaron Nolan. Have a fantastic afternoon.